I only got 10 hours or 20 hours on my engine, but I need to leave now. You know, what about that 50-hour service? If it's 20 hours, then no problem. Come and call me. We'll send a team down. We'll do this change. And the only reason why we do that, we check that the valves is still within spec, and we make sure that whatever run-in oil was used by Yanmar is now drained. That's why the 50 hours are so important. The next service after that 50 hours will be in another 250 hours, which means when your hour meter says 300, that's when the next service comes in. You will also notice there's items on your engine, like the impeller. They say pull it out, inspect it. So when you pull out the impeller, you don't have to replace it every time. So this is, we supply impeller kits, but this is your impeller. It's good to have a set of this on the boat, you know, because if this fails, you don't want to be stranded somewhere. And when you pull it out, incidentally, we also check, is there any crack lines that's forming? If there's cracks showing or fatigue lines showing, replace it. The puller turns into the impeller in the front, and you just turn it by hand. You don't need the spanners really. And you turn this until, and by turning this, you are actually pulling out, because this will push onto the shaft and it will pull out the impeller out of the water pump. Makes your life so much easier. Remember, when you reinstall it, a new impeller, that you put the thread showing your side. At 250 hours, they say inspect or replace. So if I inspect it, bending open the blades, there's no cracks showing. You know, you might find that all the blades are showing one side, which is normal because your impeller only turns one direction, right? But if the blades still feel nice and soft, there's no cracks in there or no blades missing, put it back. And you also will get a new O-ring. That's for the faceplate that seals it. And they give you little screws. These belts last 100 times longer than these ones. These belts used to run only on the edges, and they used to wear down very quickly. These belts, they're super strong. You can tow vehicles with this. Once again, what do you do? How do you check it? We will, for example, my technician, we don't even remove it. We just, while it's on there, we twist it on the engine, and we'll show you on the engine now. You just twist it. If it shows, once again, fatigue or crack lines, replace it. If it shows, you know, because this is what happens, it starts fraying on the side. Pieces get, you know, loose, replace it. But if it looks like this, it visually looks good, you've twisted it, you gave it a twist, and there was no crack lines showing, by all means, put it back. If you do a crossing, you know, my team is designed, they've been trained to come to you guys and say, we want you to have the 50-hour service, which is oil filters, oil, you know, that's all. And obviously we'll also supply a cylinder head gasket, not a head gasket, the tappet cover gasket, the bonnet gasket, because, you know, O-rings and gaskets you have to replace. You know, very seldom we will reuse it. You know, we will pull it out, we'll check it, but it's the best to replace it. That's just good practice. So they will say, right, 50-hour service, you're going to need 2 oil filters for your vessel and oil. And they'll give you 15 liters worth of oil for that first service. Then they'll say the next service, because you're now going to do a crossing, they will make sure that you have the next service spare parts as well, which is fuel filters, your pre-filter, you know, then your fuel filter, oil filters. They'll give you a set of belts and a set of impellers, along with all the lubricants, you know. The only thing that we don't have really control of, and maybe we will change it moving forward, is the coolant, right? Because the boat builders buy their own coolant. Don't mix coolants. The moment you mix coolants, you are changing that coolant's properties. If you're out at sea and you don't know what coolant you have, and you have to top up, the best way is use fresh water. Worst case scenario, you're going to dilute your coolant a little bit. That's the worst thing. But it's still going to have that same property. Coolant's got a anti-corrosive inhibitor, you know, so it prevents corrosion inside the engine. And obviously it makes sure that the water boils at 100 degrees. So now it's at 130 degrees, depending on the brand. So your engine can run a lot cooler. Oil, you know, I try to follow the same as what the coolant is. Don't change, don't mix brands. You know, if you don't know and you have to really throw in a lot of coolant, rather drain the system and put a brand that's familiar to you, that's easy accessible to you, throw it in.